Hello and welcome everybody to another guide. So today we'll be talking about cross-platform development. So why cross-platform development? Because if you're developing native, it's obvious what to choose, either Kotlin or Java for Android, Swift or Objective-C for iOS. But if you want to develop for both platforms at the same time, you have to choose cross-platform development. So for this there are a lot of frameworks, but let's first start with what is cross-platform development. So cross-platform development is developing mobile applications for both iOS, Android, and maybe desktop applications if you want, from a single shared code base and or shared UI. So what are the differences between cross-platform versus native mobile development? So first of all, you write everything once. So from single shared code base, you write for both platforms, or for maybe three platforms, and you have near native performance, and you minimize the cost of development, obviously. What are the inconveniences? It's getting new features after some time, so they are late to arrive to your framework probably, and a slow launch time, not for all frameworks, but for some of them, and not native UI, and that's obviously not for all of them. So what are we talking about today? Today we have four things to talk about: Xamarin.Forms, FLUTTER, React Native, and as a bonus, progressive web applications. So why only these four? It's because they are like they are the big things right now. So first of all, let's talk about Xamarin.Forms. So what is Xamarin.Forms? Xamarin.Forms is an open source cross-platform framework from Microsoft for building iOS, Android, and Windows apps using the .NET framework from a single shared code base. So all of this makes it seem interesting, and indeed it is. What are the features of Xamarin.Forms? First of all, MVVM design pattern, which is model view model, which helps you build extensible code base and extensible applications. So when you want to add features, you don't have to rewrite all your application from scratch. Shared UI, so it allows you to create UIs that look beautiful on both Android and iOS, and they look more consistent on both platforms. The ability to use declarative UI, just like native frameworks like Kotlin and Java, but this time using XAML, which is Extensible Application Markup Language. And the Xamarin.Forms has a huge UI component ecosystem. And obviously, being from the .NET ecosystem means that more than 90% of the code is shareable between all the frameworks, like web frameworks, desktop application frameworks, and everything. So, built using Xamarin.Forms. So the first application we have here is Alaska Airlines, and the second is the World Bank application. So the third one was made using Xamarin Native, but if you know Xamarin.Forms, the transition is very, very smooth. The third one is Transistor, which is a game, and it's very rare to see mobile frameworks making games. Our second option is FLUTTER. So what is FLUTTER? So FLUTTER is Google's UI kit or toolkit for building beautiful natively compiled applications for mobile, web, and desktop from a single code base. Basically the same premise as Xamarin.Forms. So what are the features of this platform or framework? So first of all, fast development thanks to hot reload, and I think hot reload on FLUTTER is quite amazing, to be frank. The second thing is flexible UI, which uses a very, very confusing UI. I'm very sorry, FLUTTER, but the UI is very confusing. But after some time you get used to it, because it resembles a bit React. It resembles a bit React. The second thing is near native performance when in app. So launching time may be a little bit slower, but when in the application, it's very fast. So built using FLUTTER. So here we have two examples. So we have the eBay application and Google Stadia application. So obviously, being built by Google, it's used by a lot of applications that have any relation to do with Google. Our third option is React Native. So what is React Native? React Native is an open source mobile development framework created by Facebook. It's already interesting. It is used to develop applications for Android, iOS, web, and UWP, which is Universal Windows Platform, which means Xbox, Windows 10, and some extra stuff, by enabling developers to use React along with native platform capabilities. So it basically uses React, and being developing for native, they just called it React Native. Alright, features. Fast refresh, which is basically hot reload but faster, maybe. Optimal performance, because it's using HTML, CSS, but not sure, maybe JavaScript. So I haven't used React Native, so I can't say anything about it, so take my talk with a grain of salt. It has code reuse, because it's using React, so you can take your components that you have made and use them somewhere else. And the simple UI, obviously being web. And third-party support, because obviously made by Facebook, like billions of people using it, obviously it will have third-party support. What about the apps built using React Native? So there are a lot. So first of all, the Facebook application, obviously because it's made by Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, and the Tesla application. And there are many more, like Uber and so much more. So our bonus framework is progressive web applications. So what is a progressive web app? It's a type of application software delivered through the web and built using common web technologies, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So it's basically a web application that runs on your mobile. So the frameworks for this are Ionic, React, Blazor, and NativeScript. So there are more, but I just included the ones that seems obvious. So why use PWAs? So they require no updates. So when you modify your website and just the user, when the user enters the application, it doesn't need any updates because it's already in the web. Linkable and shareable using the URL of the application. No download required. You just add it as an icon to your phone and it's just right there, and it's just there. And it has offline capabilities, which is optional for some applications, and it bypasses the store limitations. So why not use PWAs? So sometimes when using random browsers, they have limited support. So if the website you're visiting is a PWA, it doesn't tell you about that. And sometimes it's very slow for graphical intensive applications. So what to choose? Well, it all depends on your use case. So let's say if you're using an application that needs some graphical interface that's very I'm not really sure how to say that, but if it's using a UI that has a lot of elements, maybe choose Flutter, maybe React Native because it's simple. If you have already a website and you want to transfer it into an application, obviously go for React because it's basically for React Native, because it's obviously web, or build it as progressive web applications, but just think about the limitations. And if you have anything else, maybe use Xamarin.Forms. So I have a bit of experience with Xamarin.Forms, as you can tell. I've made a video about this. Xamarin.Forms is like very good, but it has very slow launch time, and it's not widely used, or not, or we may not know what is using Xamarin.Forms and what is not. Obviously, what to choose, it all depends on your use case and if you have the team of developers that you have at hand. So thank you guys for watching this video. And coming next is a database guide for mobile developers, a database guide for web developers, and a desktop app development guide, just like this one. So tell me what you think about this video in the description below. What do you think we should improve? What do you think is good? What do you think it's not? And thank you guys for watching, and see you on the next video. Peace.